1 on 5 Live.
The new Formula One season gets underway this weekend in Bahrain, the first of 23 races spanning 21 countries and 5 continents. Tons to get our teeth into. I'm Steve Crossman. This is 5 Live Formula One. And on the agenda tonight, we will hear from some of the big names, including the reigning world champion Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. We'll ask, are Red Bull unstoppable? Are Mercedes anywhere near? Who could surprise us, for better or for worse? And we'll discuss Ferrari under brand new management. Now, for some reason, the producer forgot to book my flights to Bahrain. So I'm here in Salford, whilst the rest of the team are sunning themselves. Commentator Jack Nichols is with us. Hi, Jack.
Hello, you're not missed.
Do you know what? It says lead commentator here, but you're literally the only one.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it. I'll take lead of one. That's fine by me.
We've got not one but 2 drivers with us as well. We've got the former Mercedes test driver, current Formula E racer Sam Bird, and former Renault F1 driver Julian Palmer. Hello, guys.
Hello. Good to be back.
Hello, Jolien. I believe you're here just for me, not for Jack, but specifically for me.
Yeah, well, Jack's got sarky attitude tonight, so it's good to have someone else and to be back on the radio with you, Crossy.
That's what I like to hear. And Sam, you've got to put up with it for the full season.
I know, right? It's going to be long. It's going to be a heck of a ride.
A somber mood here.
Just before we get stuck into it then, Jack, as you know, lots of people will listen to this, and I've just talked about all the different countries and continents, and they will think you guys are living the life. So just tell us about where you're broadcasting from today. Are you live from outside the paddock under a beautiful night sky?
No, we're in our producer Patrick's hotel room, and you thought he might have cleared up a little bit before we came in, but no, there's socks everywhere. Our pit lane reporter this weekend is Rosanna Tennant, and she came in and she was like, Paddy, do you mind if I move your socks so I have somewhere to sit down? So yeah, it's all the glamour of the Ramada at the moment. Other budget hotel chains, I presume, are available, but we try and avoid them, but we don't succeed.
Yeah, Jolien, I can see at least 3 different shades of brown in the decor there, and not one of them is enticing.
This is the life of Formula One. It's really high-end stuff, and we're all thrilled to be back.
And I thought my tan was quite a good colour, a shade of brown, to be honest.
Yeah, but nothing compared to this room. Yeah.
No, this room is...
Haven't we started this off on the most negative way?
Yeah, exactly.
Nichols' sarky attitude, our producer's bedroom that's all manner of beige. We're thrilled to be here, Crossy, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. It's great.
That's what I want to hear. And given the first topic is going to be whether or not Red Bull are just going to walk it this season, who knows whether or not it is going to get more positive. Before we get stuck in, though, Jack just mentioned Rosanna Tennant there, who's going to be a big part of the team in the coming weeks. And she is with us because, as many of you will know, our regular presenter, Jenny Gow, suffered a severe stroke just after Christmas. She was hospitalised, but she's now very much on the road to recovery. And we didn't want to do this show without her. She sent us this voice note.
Hi gang, sorry not to be there with you for the start of the season. I'm progressing relatively well since having my stroke at the end of December. It's not quite the off-season I'd had in mind. As you can probably tell, my speech has been the thing most affected, ironically, but we're working on that. I'm really looking forward to the start of the season and hope we'll get a really good title fight this year. Lots of great racing and maybe even some surprise winners. Wishing you all the best for the season.
Jack, it's great to hear from Jenny and we can't wait to have her back.
No, absolutely. I went to see her a couple of weeks ago now, and she was in good jovial spirit, but as you heard there, her speech has sort of been the thing most affected. She's up and about and doing all that stuff. The best thing for me when I went round is that she doesn't eat dairy, and all everyone had got her was chocolate. So when I went around, there's just this abundance of chocolate for me to eat. It was great. I must go visit her again sometime.
Yeah, so it's still all about you, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, naturally. Welcome to the Checker Flag podcast.
Jenny, I'm sure you'll be listening, and we're sending you all the best, and we can't wait to have you back. 85058 at 5 Live Sport is how you get in touch with us tonight. We're live on 5 Live. So we've got 2 drivers with us. I'm thinking, Sam, that we're going to get more insight from ever before from you guys, because drivers are competitive. So I'm kind of thinking you're going to be one-upping each other over the course of the next hour.
Me and Jolien?
Yeah,
no.
that's what I want. That's what we need.
Never. Do you know what? Me and Jolien actually competed against each other in the category below Formula 1, which is now called Formula 2. We did GP2 against each other, I mean, a decade ago now.
Did you ever collide, the two of you?
Yeah, we did actually.
Did you?
Where?
I took you out in Barcelona.
Oh,
that
yes,
just
he
came
did.
to me.
He
And
did.
we went to the stewards.
Oh,
I
the
got a penalty
steward.
for it. And it was ridiculous, actually.
What happened, Sam? What happened?
I tried some ridiculous move.
What was it?
No.
Birdie was trying to go around the outside of me. Turn 4, never on. I squeezed him through the gravel. He spun it, lost control, out the race. And I got the pen.
It was for...
ridiculous.
What position was that? Was that for second?
I think it was second,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was for second, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, the beef continues.
That's the
I love
weekend
it.
I'm in for, yeah.
Who finished higher in the standings that year?
I did that year, but then Jolien went on to become GP2 champion the next year or the year after? Was it
the next year.
The next year. So, I mean,
One all.
it doesn't
Call
get
it
better than
even.
champion.
We'll call it even. Right,
Okay,
we're
there we
going
go.
to be positive. So we'll talk about Red Bull in a second, Jack. What I want from all 3 of you is a reason to be excited. What is the big reason to be excited about Formula 1 in 2023? Go.
The thing is, for me, it's the best sport in the world. And even the years where, I know, but even the years where it's a little bit dull and it's not, they're still, right, a boring football match, and I love football, but if the football match is boring, it's 22 players kicking a ball around a pitch, and standing in a field. Whereas Formula 1, if it's a boring race, it's 20 drivers going 230 miles an hour, wheel to wheel. Even if the story's not there, for me, the act itself is so exciting. So I just love a new season of Formula 1 every year, and have done now since I was a 5-year-old.
I actually think you pretty well covered it off. I mean, that's what I was going to say. It's the best sport in the world. I mean, it's high-octane stuff. Everyone starts from a level playing field. The cars are all new or tweaked from last year. And we might think we know what's going to happen, but you never can be sure.
This stage of the year as well, anything can happen. I mean, we've got a rough idea from 3 days of testing, but anything can happen. There's going to be so many twists and turns over the course of a season. I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Okay, so when you say anything can happen, obviously, you know, we're going to discuss Red Bull and they're massive favourites for everything. But how often is the general wisdom wrong? Like, does it happen that often that you guys would sit at the start of a season and say, we kind of think we know where this is going, and then it goes somewhere completely different? Can it happen? Does it happen?
Last year, when Mercedes brought out their radical new car, the first day of testing, they rolled it out and everybody was like, wow, that looks really, really quick. And it wasn't, and it was a massive story. They slowly turned it around over the course of the year. George Russell won a race, obviously. So that was a major talking point of last year. This year, we've got other people struggling. It looks like McLaren are a little bit in the doldrums right now. We've got Aston Martin having a bit of a resurgence. So there's so many talking points, and that will develop as the course of the year continues.
And we have been so wrong in the past. Everyone's
Oh, yeah.
pretty convinced. And I was at testing last week for 3 days, and the Red Bull looks so hooked up. We're off the back of a record-breaking 15-win season for Max Verstappen, who's got 2 titles in a row. He jumps in the Red Bull last week, and it just looks dialed in from the word go. So everyone in the paddock is thinking, uh-oh, this could be a Red Bull walkover. Maybe we haven't got the competition. But I remember it was a few years ago, our very own Andrew Benson was running the numbers at the end of testing and was convinced Ferrari were absolutely going to smash it.
Not here
in
to
the
defend
first race of
himself.
Melbourne at the time.
No, he is. He's sitting on the bed, but
okay,
we
fine.
just haven't given him a
And
microphone.
he's going to be running, but downstairs in a minute to go and get Jolien's dinner. That's the running that
He's our
that
runner
gonna be doing in a
tonight.
minute.
Yeah, Jolien's ordered some sushi that has yet to arrive, and we don't know when it's going to arrive, and he's a bit grumpy before.
I'm
that.
actually concerned it's not arriving at all now. But my point was, we were very wrong back in the day. So it can happen. 3 days of testing it gives you a big idea of what the cars are like, who's feeling good, who's looking good. But it's different when you get to qualifying in a race. And then even this weekend doesn't necessarily, depends how close it is, but it doesn't necessarily mean if Red Bull do win it, that they're going to cream the whole championship, because the tracks are so different. There's such a long way to go. So let's keep interested.
And what was that stat on? Was it Rosanna said it on the podcast, or you said it that? Oh, you said
the winner of the first race of the season hasn't won the championship since 2016.
Wow.
Nico Rosberg. So there you go. There's upsets happen at the start of the season.
We got 3 rookies, Jack, as well.
Yes, we have, and that's going to be really interesting. We've got Nick de Vries joining the field from joining the AlphaTauri team, who's someone that Sam raced against last couple of years in Formula E. We've got Logan Sargent joining the Williams team as well, and I think he's going to be really interesting. And I think the rookies are something that always give you a bit more interest and excitement going into a season, because there's something unknown about a rookie. And you must be interested to see how Nick gets on.
I'm interested to see how Nick gets on, absolutely. But I'm very interested to see how Oscar Piastri gets on.
Oh, yeah, he was the one
alongside
I didn't mention,
Lando Norris. Lando is somebody that I rate really highly. And I think that if you were to plonk Lando in a Mercedes, a Red Bull or a Ferrari, he'd go and deliver and be very close to their number one drivers. But I think Oscar's got nothing to lose. I think Oscar is very, very talented. So I think that could be quite close.
Can you guys give us a bit of an insight into, this doesn't include you, you'll be shocked to hear, Jack, what it's like to be a rookie, what emotions these guys will be going through at the minute?
Probably quite a lot of apprehension, I think, is something when you're turning up for your first ever Formula One race. And
Jolien came in alongside Kevin Magnussen, who at the time was a pretty well-rated, well-respected driver, and we saw that even last year. So that from the outside felt like, Jolien's in for a tough year. Is that what it felt like for you? Did you think about it that conceptually?
Well, it's Formula One. It doesn't matter who you are. You're in for a tough year. There's no easy competitor when you're coming into Formula One. And the strange thing is, these guys have all grown up watching Formula One. So they're racing. I was wheel to wheel with Fernando Alonso in my first half a lap in Melbourne. And this was a guy who'd been racing for more than a decade.
Did you smash into him like you did Sam?
15 years. Honestly, he did what I did to Sam, and I was not happy about it. But you know the difference? He didn't get a penalty, so should never have had one. But no, it's a special moment in their careers, and I think they'll be excited now and probably a little bit nervous, I'd say, for Sunday.
Do you feel you have to prove yourself? Is that a thing us media say, and it doesn't actually feel like that?
Let's remember, Nick de Vries has done a Formula One race start, so I can imagine those nerves for him will be a little bit different. He's kind of been in that environment now. He's done it once before. I can imagine Oscar being a little bit nervous because he hasn't done a race start in well over 12 months. He didn't race at all last year, so he just had a year on the sidelines. Logan Sargent, will he have the whole weight of America on his shoulders? I don't know. I think that the pressure's off him a little bit being in a Williams. I'd say the one that would probably feel the most nervous will be Oscar Piastri.
I think it depends on your character as well. Logan Sargent, really nice guy, but quite sort of shy for a racing driver. He's young and inexperienced generally, and he seems like quite a humble, sort of shy guy. So suddenly to be thrust onto the big stage and have everyone looking at every lap that you do, even in testing now, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. And he actually did a decent job last week. The same with Piastri. His junior career record is exceptional, but he's also, and again, not a very over-exuberant character. And we had Daniel Ricciardo in that car last year, and the two of them, both Australians, but they're chalk and cheese, apart from that. So I think your character, obviously these guys have had pressures coming through to get to Formula One, but then when you're in Formula One under a microscope, your actual mettle really gets tested as well.
2 drivers and a commentator with us on 5 Live Formula One, Sam Bird, Jolien Palmer and Jack Nicholls. We cannot avoid it any longer, Jack. We've had all the excitement. Can anybody stop Red Bull, or are they just going to run away with it?
You'll struggle to find anyone in the paddock who doesn't think Red Bull are in the strongest position going into this season. But as we saw last year, Red Bull and Ferrari. Well, Ferrari kind of started stronger last year, and Red Bull came through and caught up with them and ended up dominating the second half of the season. So, as Sam sort of alluded to earlier on, you can't rule out things happening in the second half of the season. And if Ferrari are there or thereabouts, or Mercedes are there or thereabouts, it's quite close, potentially. But we can only judge it from the start of the year, right? And Red Bull looked just supremely confident. Max Verstappen kind of couldn't get the smile off his face in testing. All the other teams, well, especially Mercedes, are saying, yeah, we're not going to be fighting at the front. Ferrari is saying, yeah, not looking too great. And there's no evidence that Red Bull aren't the favourites, right, coming into this season.
No, all the evidence says that they are.
Yeah.
But again, this time 12 months ago, Ferrari finished with a 1-2. Red Bull didn't finish the first race at all. Then Verstappen retired in the third race, and Leclerc had, a 43-point lead. And we were all thinking, Ferrari are up the road, this is going to be a Leclerc championship. And they capitulated. The difference is I don't see Red Bull. They're such a well-oiled team right now. They've got the confidence of having the
Ferrari
championship.
Is that the sort of suggestion?
They need a little bit of greasing, I think, in every department. Very creaky.
Well, it's interesting you say that, though, because now they've got new leadership, haven't they, with Frederic Vasseur, somebody that I've worked with and that I really admire as a leader of men. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he gets everybody around working with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, how they get the upgrades, if they're slicker in pit stops, if their strategy's better, if heads will roll, if mistakes are made. What kind of leader is he going to be? And if Ferrari benefit from his leadership?
But I think that's the key point, isn't it, Steve? That maybe Ferrari can be a bit stronger this year. Maybe Mercedes can be a bit stronger. It's difficult to see Red Bull capitulating.
But if indeed they have the fastest car on the weekend, when we don't know for sure until they turn up in qualifying and prove our theories correct or otherwise.
Also, Sam, you're in danger of getting a red flag there, because you can't be jumping ahead to Ferrari and Vasseur now. That's later in the show. If we do that now, we'll be finished by 8:30. We'll be getting some.
I could have done with a red flag at turn 9 in South Africa. That's another story.
We'll spend the last half hour of the show just hearing Jolyon's anecdotes, like in Abu Dhabi when he told me that actually room temperature water is more hydrating than ice cold water.
Yeah. That's true. Have you lived by that since then? A year and a bit of being so hydrated.
Oh, you wouldn't believe how well hydrated I am right now, just for this conversation.
Yeah. I can see you're functioning on all cylinders, and it's really good to see.
But I also have to tell you, Crossy, the fear in Palmer's eyes when you said that story he told me in Abu Dhabi. His eyes just like,
where are we going here?
Fully wide. Like, he told you a lot of things in Abu Dhabi that are not for broadcast.
Yes, I suspect there's a lot of mutually assured destruction within the 5 Live Formula One team. Right, let's hear from Max Verstappen, shall we then? The world champion, here he is with Tom Clarkson.
I mean, we had 3 really good days. I think also just in general the progress we made over the winter was very good. But we have to, of course, show it this weekend, but not only this weekend, of course. From there onwards, you continue to develop. And every track is also a bit different in terms of behavior of the car. But yeah, the test days were good for us.
Where is this car better than last year's?
Everywhere. Right. That's the aim. I mean, you always try to improve it. It feels nice, well balanced. Of course, every team, of course, lost a bit of performance with the floor, but you always try to gain that back in a way. So you have to, of course, find a bit of a new balance with the car, but it's been good.
And where do you see the main threats coming from this season?
Of course, the team's close to us, but also I think at the end of the day from ourselves, because we have to stay on top of things and we cannot afford to make too many mistakes. I mean, we're not robots. Everyone makes mistakes, but you try to minimize it.
Max Verstappen. Sam, is the biggest possible obstacle to Red Bull themselves, i.e. they would probably have to do something spectacularly wrong for things to go against them?
It seems that way at the moment, with the gap that they had to everybody last year and how they've started this year. I would completely agree with you. I also think that they've got a leader in Max Verstappen as their number one driver, who is utterly relentless in his pursuit of victory every single weekend. he thrives to win races, and he doesn't just want to win races by a little bit. He just wants to go out and dominate every weekend. I think it will be very difficult to stop. But again, we've got a very, very long season ahead of us. We haven't even had an FP1 yet. So let's see how the season goes.
It's not too early to call it.
Write it off yet. Let's not write it off yet, because otherwise, it won't be fun for anybody.
The problem, Jolien, is when you hear Max Verstappen and he's literally asked the question, "Where is the car better?" and he says, "Everywhere."
Yeah, that's the answer you want to hear from a driver when it's the start of a new season, because the hope is that you have improved it everywhere, but the reality is it's not easy to do, and especially on 3 days of driving. Normally there's a bit of compromise and you find you cure some weaknesses, but then you discover some other things are maybe less good. But he's just so bullish, and even that response there, where's the car better? Everywhere. Everything is just confidence coming out of Max and the team, in fact, as well. And in last week's press conference, the drivers were asked what's their aim for the year, and there was I think it was Lewis there, and then Charles Leclerc at Ferrari was saying, hopefully we can fight for wins, but your Red Bull are strong. And then it came down the line to Max, and Max just said, the aim's to win the championship.
Yeah.
Just simple. And he is just ruthless in that way. He's got a teammate that probably won't challenge him over the course of the season as well, which actually is a strength at this point for Red Bull. Whereas I know people will say in the past, Mercedes had the dominant car and Hamilton won those titles. And then they're not wrong, but there was always the Hamilton-Rosberg jeopardy in that time. And even then, there was Ferrari entering the mix and Hamilton had to see off Vettel. The way that people are thinking this is going to go is that Red Bull are going to be up the road and Verstappen has got the beating of Sergio Perez quite easily. So I hope we're all wrong and Ferrari do find some performance and Mercedes are there, because they're both making positive noises, but just Red Bull making ridiculously positive noises, basically.
I think Christian Horner's on breakfast tomorrow morning as well, so we'll see what he's got to say tomorrow morning too.
Also on Mid-Morning and Drive and 5 Live Sport and Overnight.
Yeah.
No, listen, I spoke to him before the start of last season a couple of times in the season. I find him fascinating to talk to. Christian Horner, of course, the team principal of Red Bull. Let's pick some holes, guys. We can pick some holes. I mean, politically, Jack, do they have any issues going on behind the scenes, or is Sergio Perez just happy to play second fiddle?
Well, that was what I found a little... So at the end of last season, to take it all the way back to May last season in Monaco, Sergio Perez crashed in qualifying and secured a third-place grid slot ahead of Max Verstappen. And there was some feeling, it seems, from within Red Bull or from Max that maybe Perez did that on purpose. And that all kind of boiled over at the Brazilian Grand Prix when Verstappen wasn't trying to help Perez finish second in the championship. And it all got a bit unpleasant at that time. And I've never quite understood that side of things from Perez, because I'm almost certain, Sam, he would have gone to Red Bull knowing he was only going to be number 2 to Verstappen. Doesn't there come a point where you're up against someone, I don't know, Perez, he's in his, early mid-30s and he doesn't believe he's going to beat one of the best ever, or does he? Is that
we're drivers, and we always
don't have any kind of this is Max Verstappen, probably not going to beat him, but I'll go and be number 2 and have a nice time.
You aspire to maybe improve yourself, learn and get to that level. That's what you want from yourself. Now, getting to Max's level is unachievable, I think, for Sergio, with where he is in his career now. He's.
But you don't think he believes that?
I think it's very difficult for a driver to really dig deep enough to say he's just purely better than me. I think it's a difficult thing for a driver to do.
But they were neck and neck for the first half a year last season. So you brought up the Monaco crash where Perez crashed and actually secured himself third on the grid in Monaco, which seemed a bit of a low blow when there's not even a front row grid slot for you to sort of deliberately crash, was the insinuation, and it looks fairly well supported. And Verstappen at that point was fourth. But they were neck and neck. I think Perez was almost leading the championship at that time. And then Verstappen was more dialed into the car and he started improving. And you sort of saw more the natural ability of him. And
so do you think they'll have issues this year with those two drivers?
No, because Perez needs his drive for the future. He's in a top car. If he finishes second, we saw how happy we would have been with second last year. Of course, he'll start the year dreaming of the win and the championship and some divine intervention that will put him on a par with Verstappen. Because you've got to dream, haven't you? You've got to dream in life, guys, in general. But
that's why we're here in this beige hotel room in Bahrain.
Julian got much more positive as soon as someone put a massive plate of sushi in front of him, didn't they?
Yeah,
I suddenly thought, we got to dream, guys.
He's ordered
16 Mackie rolls.
16 Mackie
Jack
rolls.
wanted one, and Jolien's not going to let him have one single Mackie roll. Oh, he's going.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the last year, though, Jolien, I found it interesting because the Red Bull for the first 3 or 4 races actually didn't suit Max. It had too much understeer in it. And then Red Bull have gone away, worked on the car and made it a more oversteery car, which is more to Max's liking. And then Max has just taken off. So it's clear where they want to take the car at Red Bull. It's clear that it's all a case of making sure that Max is comfortable and not Sergio.
Yeah, it's a one-car team. It's black and white. They're so transparent about it. It's a one-car team. They support their number one driver. The number one driver is Max Verstappen, who is probably, in my opinion, now the best driver on the grid, the most complete. And so it's kind of understandable as well. But that does mean that there was quotes from Alex Albon last week who was talking about, he was the teammate at Red Bull before Perez got in there. And he was kind of beaten fairly squarely by Verstappen. He was saying he just couldn't understand how Max can drive the way that the Red Bull car is set up, with a basically massively oversteery car, loads of front end grip, not enough rear end grip, and Albon was just struggling to control it basically. And that's obviously the trend that they've started to get towards again with this development. And it doesn't suit Perez or seemingly anyone else, but it does suit Verstappen. And it means that Red Bull are Drivers' Champion and Constructors' Championship winners now.
So, Jack, if anyone can just sort of throw a little bit of wasabi into this season, could it...
Now, they need a little bit of soy sauce, honestly. Like, put a little bit of soy sauce on, genuinely.
Very dry.
Yeah, very dry. But and a nice bit of kick, huh? Nice kick.
Yeah, I got the spicy ones.
Yeah.
Could it be Mercedes?
So,
I mean, I hope your sushi isn't bouncing up and down. I know it's raw, but...
Yeah, the sushi's porpoising. It's porpoise.
That's it.
Sushi.
That was the big problem they had last year. The car was bouncing up and down. They've sorted that, yes?
Yes, that is sorted. But that was the thing last year, where we spent a lot of the year thinking once they fix the porpoising, then it'll be fine. But actually, George Russell on occasion would say the porpoising is one problem, the bouncing up and down. But even if we solve that, the car is not necessarily still a great car. And I think that's the position they find themselves in now. They've stopped the terrible bouncing up and down that means they'll be miles off the pace. But I think inherently they're still struggling with the car a little bit. And they still feel, to me, like they're not exactly guessing, but they say they've got a sort of major new things in the pipeline ahead of, a little bit later in the season. But if they were on it, they'd have had those for the start of testing. So they still feel a little behind the curve to me, a little bit.
And Toto Wolff has been saying that we may well change that innovative side pod design that they had.
But they've stuck so belligerently to this innovative... Sam mentioned it a little earlier on. When testing started last year, they basically had no side pods. Everyone's like, wow, this must be great. Hasn't been great, but they're still sticking to it.
Well, at the time, when Mercedes did anything, you were just like, oh, that's it. They win
Genius.
again.
Yeah, genius.
Well done.
Paint the car black, genius. Like, oh, they'll win. Anything.
Anything they did turned to gold. And that was the one thing that they came out last year with the zero pod, no sort of pronounced side pods. And it was part of a pretty bad package that they had. Now, they don't think that the zero pods were the issue for it. They thought it was all underneath the car where the ground effect downforce is created. So they've stuck to their guns. But I think they've left a wriggle room to get out of it quite early on if they need.
This whole thing, Sam, is just classic Formula One, I think, because when those pods weren't there, Christian Horner and some of the other big teams were like, no, this can't be fair, this can't be right, and then they realised they were rubbish and they were like, oh, that's fine, you carry on. Keep going, no problem at all.
Yeah.
But Christian and Toto have handbags every weekend, don't they? About he said this and they did that, and we don't like this on their car, and what are they doing now? I'm looking forward to more of that this year. I hope that Mercedes are a little bit closer so that we see more of that. It makes it more interesting for the viewers, for us speaking about thing. But yeah, the fact that they were complaining about it and then took it back so early on in the season was quite funny last year.
Right, let's hear from Lewis Hamilton. Here he is with Rosanna.
How different are you feeling in your headspace coming into this season compared to last, after the controversies of 2021, and how has it helped you in a way?
I feel a lot more, I would say a lot more relaxed, a lot more, even after like the 3 days, just knowing that we're not in necessarily a fighting for pole and fight for win position just yet. I feel after a difficult year last year, I feel we're best prepared for whatever's thrown at us this year, good or bad. So I know that I know who to go to in my team. I know how to deal with the struggle, and that through it and through hard work we will get there.
And you talk about the limitations that perhaps have now been uncovered. What are they? And losing someone like James Vowles, for example, how much might that be a limitation as well?
Oh no, finally. I mean, I've been hoping for James to leave for such a long time. So
finally got the message.
Definitely miss having James around. You know, we've been through so much together. We've done over 100 Grand Prix together. So it'll be very, very strange going to battle without him. But I'm so grateful for his contribution and what he has helped us do over the years. Even though he's not here, he's left a legacy within the team that will continue on. So we work from stuff that he's contributed to the team, which is great. And when he told me about his opportunity, I was just so happy for him. I think it's truly deserved and easily capable of the job. And I know he's going to do great things there. What was the other part of it?
Whether there are other limitations when you talk about what needs to change, you know, what you're working on.
Just to be basic, it's always downforce. So it's just downforce efficiency. It's about where we have the downforce, where you can use it. Right now, the people we're competing against have a lot more.
That's Lewis Hamilton. A couple of things to get into there. We've got a couple of drivers with us, Jolyon Palmer, Sam Bird, lead commentator Jack Nicholls on 5 Live Formula 1 as well. On James Vowles, who got mentioned there, Sam, you worked with him, didn't you? He was the chief strategist. How big of a blow is it for Mercedes to lose him?
I think it is a big blow. I think that James has been there well over a decade now, and he obviously felt like he needed a fresh start. And wanted to take up this great opportunity for himself. They've got the infrastructure in place to replace him and do the same job. You know, they won't have let him go if that wasn't the case. But I think he'll be missed as a person because he is a great guy to have in a team as a motivator, as somebody to go to speak to as well. He's very, very calm, very intellectual. But with regards to strategy, I think that it'll be very similar at Mercedes.
How important are these guys, Jolyon, in the bigger picture? Because to me, I'm hearing chief strategist, and I'm thinking about all of the teams who seem to get their strategy wrong on a regular basis, of which Ferrari was certainly one last year. Mercedes, you know, they obviously didn't have the car, but you know, how big a role do they actually play? We've spoken so many times about all kinds of things. I can't remember having a big chat with you about a chief strategist before.
No, uncharted territory, isn't it, really? But let's go.
Did you ever listen to them?
So they're quite important, actually.
You always disagreed with them, though, didn't you?
Yeah, they're rubbish. No, the drivers are always bartering with the strategist because they always want to put their own take on things. But you ultimately have to listen to the strategist when you're driving the car because they see the big picture and you're just seeing the car ahead and a little bit behind. So you need to have a lot of faith in basically the chief strategist. But they do have all teams have a big strategy department as well. So James Vowles leaving, for him, it's a great opportunity to be team principal. He's the boss now at Williams. So it's a great position for him to go to, and it shows sort of what a good job he's done at Mercedes as a strategist, effectively, and then more into the management side of it. But he will have an understudy there that's now ready to step up, and the rest of the team won't really change there. So they'll lose the linchpin. A new linchpin will come in, and they'll have to develop a little bit of rapport on the pit wall, but the procedure won't be any different fundamentally from the people making the decisions, because a lot of it's on software now as well. So it's not one person just calling it on the fly and winging it. There's a lot of method behind all the strategy. So I think Mercedes should be okay. But of course, it will be a loss having someone at the top of the chain with that experience.
But I think that's the thing with James Vowles for me. He always highlighted the difference between Mercedes and Ferrari, because if there was a Mercedes strategy problem, James Vowles would be the figurehead of that and come on the radio and say, "Hi, Lewis, it's James," or "Hi, Valtteri, it's James," or whatever. "Really sorry, we got that wrong." Whereas Ferrari would claim there was no error in the strategy. And I think that's the big thing that Mercedes have, is they had this, or still have this, it was like a no-blame culture, whereas Ferrari feel like they got that confused with a no-fault culture. At Mercedes, it was James Vowles' fault, the strategy team's fault, but we don't blame him for that. Whereas Ferrari, it feels like there was no fault, nothing happened, nothing went wrong. And I think there's a very different thing.
Yeah, this is where it could get a little bit interesting for Mercedes, though, because there is a new person in line to take James Vowles' job. I'm not sure who this person is. We're going to find out in the next couple of days.
Could be Julian.
If for whatever reason, if for whatever reason a mistake is made early on in the season, where's Lewis Hamilton's head going to be at with regards to trusting this new guy? He trusted James implicitly with strategies over the last 10 years, and it was a case of we win together, we lose together. Yeah. If this new guy comes in and strategies don't quite work out for whatever reason, whether it be this guy's fault or out of his control, is Lewis going to go a little bit rogue with his strategies and be like, "No, I'm Lewis
like
Hamilton."
How we see Carlos Sainz do at Ferrari. He clearly doesn't trust the strategy, so he just does what he wants to do.
I think it'll be fine. Because don't forget, Lewis knows not just James Vowles, but he knows there's people in the strategy department. So he'll know them promoting from within. He'll know who's going to be stepping up. And so long as they keep the same culture at Mercedes of justifying their decisions, basically, for right or for wrong. Sometimes they blew it in the past. But they would always say why they made the decision, and they'd show the logic. They'd show their workings. Basically, after you get a point for workings at Mercedes, and that's basically what they were doing. And okay, you don't get any points at the end of the race, but you do get respect from your drivers, I think. Whereas when you go through, I had sometimes when I was driving, and you get to the end of the race, and you're like, "What strategy were we on?" And then they run through the logic, and you're thinking, "What? None of that makes any sense." And then you start to get to where probably Carlos Sainz was at last year with Ferrari. And you start doubting when you're in the car every time they're telling you to pit or every time they're telling you what tyres to go on. And you're thinking, "Oh, I don't know if they're right on this one." You need to have implicit faith in the strategy team.
I love the idea, Julian, of you at the end of the race kicking off about the strategy and then someone say to you, "No, Julian, we get a point for our working."
Yeah. No, not when they're wrong though. The working's got to be making sense.
Jack, can we move on to Ferrari then? And I think what you just said was really interesting about a no blame culture versus a no fault culture. How much of that no fault culture at Ferrari has led to not just a change in team principle, but a number of significant changes at the top?
Yeah, I think I think they've got to try. It felt like to me that they tried to replicate that no fault, no blame culture at Mercedes, and just didn't quite understand what it was all about. And even, last season, it was, no, we didn't make a mistake putting our drivers out on dry tyres while it was raining. Honestly, that was not a mistake. And you'd be like, no, but it was. What are you talking? And that accepting of blame and that accepting, we see it with football managers all the time. I'll take the blame for today. Today wasn't the players. I picked the wrong team, whatever. And whether it's true or not, who knows? But I think Ferrari kind of misjudged that completely. So they got rid of Mattia Binotto, the team principal, who, by the way, had been at Ferrari for over 20 years, I think. I saw some great archive footage of Michael Schumacher testing in the late 90s, and Mattia Binotto's there as his engineer, or not race engineer, but systems engineer or something like that. They've got rid of they've moved the head of strategy back to Maranello. So there's a lot of changes going on at Ferrari, and I think this was the hope of Fred Vasseur, is that he'll come in and make the changes that are required, because he's a no nonsense guy, as you say. Sam, did you race with him as well?
Yeah, Renault. He went to Renault.
Oh, yeah, Renault, of course. So both of these guys have raced for him, and he's just I'm stealing Jolien's line here, but he's a racer through and through, right? He's like, that's all. He's not, Ferrari in the past have had these team principals that are, they used to
They're
be
more politicians.
Yeah,
sometimes.
or they were the head of sales for North America Ferrari or whatever, and that's not.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
Well, even Flavio Briatore, when he came in at Benetton, wasn't he just the boss of Benetton Clothing? And then they were like, "Oh, will you run the F1 team?" And he was like, "Yeah, okay." And then it went really
and
well.
will look great
but
doing it.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Other clothing bosses just trying to get themselves signed up as well to be team principal of a Formula One team.
Yeah.
Even as you mentioned, Binotto, his background was technical. So he came from the technical...
Make you a good man manager or
Exactly.
whatever.
It makes you a very clever person, and you can see the faults of the car and you can understand it. But it doesn't help you necessarily organise a strategy team or motivate the pit crew to do fast, efficient pit stops. So so much of it is man management. And you look at Christian Horner or Toto Wolff, and they are undoubtedly successful team principals. They've been around the block now for a long time. And they don't have the technical expertise that Mattia Binotto would have. It would be almost more like Adrian Newey running the Red Bull team.
Yeah, true.
So being a genius or being super smart is not necessarily what you want in a leader. And I actually think, having worked with Fred Vasseur, who's there now, he is a racer. He understands how to go about winning races. In the junior formula, it's much more simple. You have 12, 13 people. You know everyone by name straight away, and you can understand the characters straight away. But even at Ferrari now, it's a big, daunting task for him, because it's a huge job. I mean, it's maybe the plum job in the whole paddock to be the boss of Ferrari. But he straight away made a big change. As you said, it was Iñaki Rueda was the chief strategist.
Who's been there for years. For all the time that it's been 10 years or so that Ferrari strategy's been a bit dodge. And he sort of survived the whole time, even back to the Sebastian Vettel years.
That was when he started, was the Sebastian Vettel years. He joined with Vettel, and now he's moved back to the factory. So he's still there, but in a smaller role, and there'll be someone else. So he's making changes already, and I quite like him as a hire. The logic of it makes sense to me.
Your experience of him, Sam?
I loved working with him. So it was my first year in GP2, 2010, I had the opportunity of driving for ART. That was his team in GP2, and I was terrified of him to begin with.
Did you get any words out of it?
Terrified. I remember going into his office and sitting down, and there was about 30 seconds of just awkward silence before he basically told me that I wasn't driving well enough and I needed to up my game.
Really?
Yeah, but I hung on his every word, so I went away, worked at it, and actually I had a pretty good season in my rookie year. Won a race in GP2. Jules Bianchi was my teammate. He didn't win a race. So I was competitive. We were quick. And it was largely down to his leadership and me being terrified of the guy.
I worked with him for 3 or 4 years at Formula E, because he was part of the team that designed that first Formula E car. Never spoke to him. Terrified.
He honestly
terrified. Just like but apparently he's a lovely, funny, friendly guy.
But when he gets to know you,
yeah,
and when you get to know him, when he lets you into
the inner circle, yeah,
then he's great, and he's great fun, and he's great fun.
Yeah.
But at the same time, without losing the control and the trust and the respect.
So I cannot believe the transformation he's had publicly now. When he was at Renault, he was straight out of the GP2 days where he was giving you a hiding for not performing, and everyone else that he's worked with as well. Some of them are, some of the best drivers. Lewis Hamilton has come through that team. I think Charles Leclerc as well.
Did all of his
so did Vettel, so did Paul
He's worked with the best, and he would have grilled them all coming through. He's no nonsense. And then he was the same at Renault. He was a man of few words, but the words that were there, when you're getting on with him, he's great. But he's still not a very elaborate guy. And then he moved to Alfa Romeo, and he's the joker of the pack.
He's
he
like
really changed.
He's the Gunter wannabe.
Yeah, he is.
Steiner wannabe.
And we were speaking to him last week as well at testing, wearing the red of Ferrari. And you're thinking, is this going to bring back the serious Fred again? Chilled out entertainer he is these days. So I'm sure behind closed doors it's going to be the same meticulous, knowing how to get race wins Fred Vasseur there. But his public persona has changed so much.
The former chief strategist thinks he's a right laugh.
Chilled out
when
entertainer.
I found out that it was
probably a team principal third, I'd say.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, when I found out it was going to be Fred, I was excited for Ferrari. You know, I've worked with Ferrari and I've got a soft spot for them, and I want them to do well. I think F1 needs them to do well, and I think this is the right hire.
And Mattia Binotto has so much support in the paddock. There were so many people up and down the paddock who were a little bit upset that he was being ousted at Ferrari. Yeah. And there are still so many people in the paddock that disagree with the decision, and it's just one man steering the ship, and how can he be to blame? But I agree. I think on paper, this is a really decent hire. When you look at the issues Ferrari had, the man that they've got in at the top of the tree now to try and sort them out, I think it makes complete sense. And Binotto, honestly, in my opinion, had a long time to try and get the team into a shape to try and fight for a championship. And they fell so far short.
When was the last time Ferrari brought in a team principal that externally? Like, I think that's the key thing. Everybody else who was brought in as team principal was always the internal hire. I think even Stefano Domenicali was, and Marco Mattiacci. It was Jean Todt in 1996 who, earlier than that, 1993, came into Ferrari and took it sort of by the scruff of the neck and could make these changes. And you wonder whether when Mattia Binotto's been working with that team for 20 years, comes in, is he going to fire his mate, the chief strategist? Maybe not. It's not quite that simplistic, but you take my point. Whereas Vasseur comes in, fresh set of eyes, and can kind of do what he wants, and maybe has the ability to do that more so because he's not an internal hire for the first time in 30 years.
Great insight into the 5 Live Formula 1 team that I got there, where Jack Nicholls said 1996 and turned round hopefully to look at our chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, who I can only imagine sort of forlornly held up 3 fingers and was like, 93, Jack, come on.
96 was when Schumacher joined, and Ross Brawn joined in 95 or 95? No, 6 as well.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead, Jack, if I'm completely honest. Now, we also operate a no-blame culture at 5 Live, but producer Paddy's pressed something and now we've got a delay. So we're going to fix it, and in the meantime, you're going to hear from,
what have you done, Paddy?
From Ferrari's Charles Leclerc.
We did loads of tests during testing, which helped us better understand the car, which was really, really important for us. In terms of pecking order, I have my idea. I'm not supported by engineer data, but my idea, I feel like Red Bull is a bit ahead. But that doesn't mean anything. It's only the first race of the season. The season is extremely long. And as I've said many times, I think last year we finished second in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. Now the next step to improve is being a world champion. So this is still our target.
I'm only joking. Without producer Paddy, nothing ever works, and we love him dearly. Warrington Wolves 6, Salford Red Devils 20 is a half-time score for you in Super League. We've got Sam Bird, Jolyon Palmer, 2 drivers, and Jack Nicholls all with us on 5 Live Formula 1. We've only got another 10 minutes, and we've got a couple of other things to get through. So just from all 3 of you, what is a realistic aspiration for Ferrari this season? Sam, do you want to kick us off?
Realistic aspiration for Ferrari. We've just been bigging up Frederic Vasseur massively, I think. But then I have to ask myself, are they going to do any better than finishing second in the Constructors this year? And in my opinion, the answer is no. So are they going to make massive inroads into Red Bull? And I'm going to say no.
That's a bit doom and gloom.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
You're backing them for the title.
No, but guys, an aspiration isn't. I just said 10 minutes ago. You got to dream. You got to dream.
Okay, but a realistic target for them right now is probably to remain second in the Constructors.
If I'm a Ferrari, look, they've got to be aspiring for the title. We're all of everything we've just said in this hour might go out the window on Saturday, by the way, when Red Bull aren't up the road from everyone and Ferrari are the team to beat. And Sam's saying they should be focusing on P2, and they're 1 and 2 and the field. You're starting this season. They were second last year. They've got a very good driver pairing. They came up short in many ways last year, but the car was fundamentally decent. I agree. I think they're going to start with probably the second best car, but you got to dream, guys. You got to dream. They can win the title if things go their way. And it's a long season, 23 races. Get the development sorted. They could have the best car in a few races' time.
The problem is, Julian... sorry, go on, Sam. No, you're right. Go on.
No, I was just going to say that's where Ferrari have been quite weak over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And last year especially, they can start off okay, but then the development just sort of falls away and mistakes creep in throughout the year, whereas Red Bull are just so much more meticulous in the way they go about things, and Mercedes, to be fair.
So this is the reason I have to ask a journalistic question here, Julian, is because if I just ask you what is the dream, you'll just say win it, obviously. They're all dreaming of what's Alonso's dream for the season? Winning it.
Yeah, he's got to win it. Yeah.
but they are.
You've got a dream, Crossy.
When Julian's the dreamer in your team, you know you're in trouble.
You know I love it, Julian.
No, I was actually. I do think the team that finished second last year and is vying for the championship for half a season.
Answer the Alonso question.
You got to be going for the win. Fernando Alonso. If we're moving on to Aston Martin, they're flying.
Yeah,
they're absolutely flying. So Alonso. He's got a dream of the title. No. I think that's a stretch for Fernando. But Aston Martin have made huge progress. 2-time champ at the wheel. And he was absolutely on it last week. So I think Aston Martin, the dream for them is to be fighting with the big guns, with Mercedes and Ferrari.
Alonso's moved to a team at the right time. For the first time
this could be it. This
2 decades nearly. Yeah. Yay, finally.
Yeah, do you know, it's interesting you say that, Sam, because I read a lot about that today, actually, and this idea that Fernando Alonso is a great driver who's made a string of bad decisions in terms of who he's driving for. Is that fair, then?
Well, you look at it, he won the championship in 2005, 2006 with Renault. He then moved to McLaren. It didn't work out because of internal issues, obviously, with Lewis and with the engineering group there. He's then moved back to Renault with a fairly uncompetitive car. He's then moved from there. Was it from
Ferrari.
there to Ferrari?
Yeah.
Nearly won championships there with an uncompetitive car, then moved to McLaren, had a really uncompetitive car there. Then he's moved away from Formula One, gone back to Alpine and had an uncompetitive car. So this is like the first time, I think, in probably 10 years where Fernando's getting back into the start of a Formula One season and has got a shot at getting podiums straight off the bat.
And that's exciting, Jack, isn't it? You seem excited by it.
Oh, Alonso's just my sort of feelings on Alonso go up and down over the years. Sometimes when he's sort of complaining and miserable and unhappy, you're a bit like, oh, well, just go and do IndyCar then. Stop complaining about being in Formula One. Go do the Indy 500 and good luck to you. And I remember we all sat around watching him try and win the Indy 500 and he was doing a great job, but then he retired or whatever. But then he's kind of been through a bit of a renaissance now where he's a lot of fun again and he's someone you want to. He used to be kind of the pantomime villain, I think, a little bit. And now he's like the pantomime villain that has had a full sort of 3-season story arc and you actually quite like again now.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that, isn't it? He's just such a character. Yeah. And the way that he drives is it kind of very much like his character.
Right? He's so old for a modern F1 driver.
He'll be 42 in the summer. I mean, he's taking the age records in modern times at least. He's been around for such a long time. But I was out trackside last week watching him coming through in the Aston Martin. First laps in the car, and he's just on it. He's just absolutely on it. You can see him correcting the slides, locking up a little bit, but he just looks, between it all, hooked up. And the motivation is 110% there.
Right, we've got 4 minutes left. Do we think, Jack, that Daniel Ricciardo might have also made a really good decision this season, which is not to be a driver for McLaren?
Yeah, I mean, whether that was exactly Ricciardo's decision is a little bit, there was a certain mutual element there. McLaren certainly look like they're struggling and they're in their Alonso days, the second round of Alonso days, they were really at the bottom of the pack, basically. They had the slowest car out there in 2016. But they kind of started to come back towards the top. Norris was nearly winning races in Sochi a couple of years ago. but they've really plummeted away. Surprise! They've got to be. They were slow at the start of last year too, but this has been worrying.
Watch out! They'll play the long game this season because they've gone down they went down a bad avenue of design. They realised it very late in the day, and they've basically switched to go a different way in the design of the car, which basically means they're horribly behind. So they've got an upgrade package coming, I think, for race 4 or 5, and that might be the start of McLaren making a resurgence. As it stands, no one's expecting them to do any good this weekend.
Everybody will have an upgrade package for Baku or around that time. So if you're thinking that they're going to find half a second compared to other people, they'll find 2/10 compared to other people. So I'm concerned for McLaren right now.
Yeah, I do think their package could be bigger, and I think they might have then more further potential to develop in that direction. It's to be seen, but also they did, as you mentioned, they started the season pretty badly last year, and they could recover. I just think Norris is going to be a little bit peeved because he, as Sam, you alluded to earlier on, one of the best drivers out there, he could be trundling around at the back in these early races. So another tough start of the season for him.
You each get a surprise of the season. Which driver do you think is gonna shock us in a good way? Let's end positive, Jack.
I'm going Piastri. I'm backing Piastri to be really quite impressive against Norris because Piastri has just been fantastic throughout his whole junior career. Rookie year, it's a big tall order, but I think he would be my favourite surprise. He'd be my favourite surprise. If he's up there right with Norris, who, as these guys have both just said, is one of the top guys, I think that would be a lot of fun. Your surprise of the season, Sam?
It's not really a surprise because he's the most experienced guy in Formula One history. But mine is Fernando Alonso fighting for wins again.
Wins.
I'll give you a curveball. Nick de Vries at AlphaTauri, alongside Yuki Tsunoda. Pierre Gasly left the team. De Vries has come in. If he does a really good job there, and Perez is underperforming at Red Bull,
De Vries in at Red Bull,
he could potentially get himself into an all-Dutch super team at Red Bull. He did a really good job on debut last year as a stand-in, and he's a confident guy. He's a very smart guy. I think he could make some waves this year.
Well, the surprise of the season so far for me has been Jolyon Palmer's presence on 5 Live Formula One. I know you only come out when you want to, Jolyon, and I appreciate you.
I come out when the big guns are here.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of big guns, I have to really quickly mention we've clashed tonight with Rosanna Tennant's show on BBC Radio Norfolk called Racing Talk. That was on 8 till 8:30, so you can go back and listen on BBC Sounds to that.
Yes, you can. Though not right now because the Euroleagues is coming up.
Yeah. But whenever you stop broadcasting, people can go listen to Rosanna on BBC Sounds.
Got it. Jolyon, look forward to speaking to you when I speak to you. Sam, Jack, look forward to speaking to you every week. Thank you very much, guys. Oh, Jack, plug your coverage. Plug your coverage.
Oh, yeah, race gets underway at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon on Sports Extra. We're on 15 minutes before that, and then practice and qualifying are on the network at various points. Mostly, they're all on the BBC Sport website.
Dreadful. I had to say, make sure Jack's been told I'm going to ask him about his coverage.
No, but I'm not going to give you the free practice 1 time.
He'll know.
And the free practice 2 times, and there'll be podcasts every night. It'll be great.
Just Google it and you'll be fine, is basically it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'd love 5 Live Formula One. The team are great. Jack Nicholls, Jolyon Palmer, Sam Bird, all with us on 5 Live. The Euroleagues is up next. Guillaume Balaguer.